What's up, peeps? Your boy Ricky Funes. Welcome to another episode of Tengoose Boxing Talks. Today we have a special guest. He's boxing's biggest matchmaker, Mr. Robert Diaz. Welcome, Mr. Robert Diaz.
Thank you, Ricky. It's a pleasure. It's an honor, and let's go. Let's get it. Let's get on with it.
Right.
Let the first bell ring.
That's right. Mr. Robert, thank you for coming. It's an honor to have you here, brother.
Thank you.
Robert, I just want to fans and boxing people, look, there's always behind the scenes in boxing. There's a matchmaker, but a lot of people don't. Who really is a face behind Robert Diaz? And a lot of fans would like to know who you really are and where you started from and how'd you get involved in boxing. So tell us a little bit more about yourself, Mr. Robert.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that, and I think we're gonna go in deeper than I have in the past, and I think it's we've known each other for many years, and I think it's you're right. The fans need to know not only who the matchmaker and what the matchmaker role is, but a little bit more about Robert Diaz that they didn't know.
Correct.
Born and raised in San Francisco in the Mission District. My dad instilled boxing into me since I was a little kid. It was part of, I didn't say, I won't say I loved boxing early on, but I associated boxing with fiestas. Because if you remember back in our days, when there was a big fight, there was a big gathering, there was the carne asada, it sort of faded off now. It's not as big anymore. But back then it was something big. So I associated boxing with parties, with family coming over and having a good time. Little by little, as I got into the teenage years, fell in love with boxing. And obviously, I'm very fortunate to be in a sport, in a job that I love. But going back to my early ages, and this is very, very little known, during my time growing up as a teenager, gang-infested in San Francisco.
What part of San Francisco?
I lived in the Mission District, which is very similar to the East LA of Los Angeles.
Yeah, we're gonna get comfortable. I'm gonna make you feel comfortable. It's all right if you want to. There you go. You still could talk there.
Okay, perfect.
Don't edit this. Stays natural.
Perfect, perfect.
So you in the Mission District, you said, right?
In the Mission District. Now, obviously, the difference between San Francisco and LA is you have the norte and the sur.
Correcto.
Now, San Francisco is predominantly all norteños. Yeah. I didn't grow up as a norteño. I grew up as a sureño.
I was about to say, look, because you have all red right here.
I grew up as a sureño, which was very tough. It was very tough because where you had one gang of sureños, you had 15, 18, 20 gangs of norteños that all had, even if they didn't get along, they had one thing in common: finish off the sureños. Mm-hmm. And it's not something I bring up today proudly, but it's not something I forget. Right. I hold on to where you come from, your roots and who you are, because that's who made me today.
Correct.
Fighting odds was the way I grew up. You know, being in a sureño gang, surrounded by norteño gangs, and having even to go to school, Ricky.
Oh yeah.
I couldn't catch the bus because on the bus there was going to be norteños, so I'd have to walk certain areas, certain neighborhoods, get through to get to school. Same thing, go back home. But it taught me a lot. It shaped me into never accepting and always facing odds, but always trying to overcome them. And I say that because later through the years, obviously I disconnected.
You matured.
Matured, got out of it, realized that, you know what? This is not good. You know, I saw friends get killed. I saw friends go to jail. It's sad, but there's still, at our age, some friends that are still stuck in that, right?
Oh, yeah.
But I learned early on that I couldn't keep up that life. And it happened. One, I had both parents. So there was really no reason for me to find that. But I did find it fun. I find, hey, these were my compas. These were my homeboys, you know. So I found it. But my parents kept pushing. Eventually moved me to Mexico. Found a new life, a new style of living, which opened up my eyes a lot because growing up in the mission, growing up in the barrio, that's all you know.
Yeah, was that the name of the neighborhood we grew in? Mission?
Mission District. It's the neighborhood. At the time, puro hispano, puro Latino, puro Mexicano,
Yeah.
Mexican American immigrants. Today, it's very different. They cleaned it up.
Gentrify it.
And now it's like yuppie.
Oh,
A lot
really?
of little restaurants and boutiques. It's like I go back there and I'm like,
Yeah.
hey, this is not my barrio where I came from, but it is also nice to see. You don't see the tagging on the walls as much, and improvement. Exactly. And going to Mexico at an early age, I was moved to Mexico was supposed to be a month. My dad lied to me, promised to buy me a car. And at 16, I said, "Oh, I'm gone."
You
I'll
were
come
16
back.
when you were in Mexico, right?
Yeah, 16, 17, I go to Mexico to buy the car, and there was no money, there was no car, there was nothing to
You
come
got tricked
back.
like I did.
I got tricked and ended up staying there a couple years. Went back to San Francisco at beginning reformed because I had, like I said, learned a new life. I mean, my family in Mexico was well off, government, business.
Yeah.
So it was now on boats. It was now on jet skis in the ocean.
Nice.
It was now clubbing versus hanging out at the park or on a bike or in a lowrider.
About to get shot.
Exactly. Or drinking out of a bottle, a kawama, instead of at a club and with a bottle service. So it was two different worlds. At the beginning, I went back to San Francisco and I said, okay, I'm not going back to...
What year is this, Robert?
Ooh, it's probably 87.
Okay, good.
About 87, 88, late 80s. So now I'm thinking I'm staying away from them. I don't want to get caught up in that anymore. It's been about maybe almost 2 years. I'm about 18 now. But I go back and I get it. I get more harder. I get more aggressive. I get more into it now. After a couple months of staying away, it lured me back in. And it was like, now I'm an 18-year-old. I wasn't one of the little guys. I was now one of the bigger guys. And it was like, all right, let's really go hard. Eventually, that got me into trouble. And then moved to San Diego and had a major car accident in Tijuana. I was about 19 years old when I had my car accident, broke both my legs.
Really?
But I was in Tijuana, so they wanted to arrest me because I was the driver, 2 other passengers. Fortunately, thank God, we all lived.
You guys were drinking or...
Drinking in Tijuana, partying, and then driving back to San Isidro. I was the driver. 10 months out without walking. 7 surgeries in my right leg. Left leg had no surgeries. Learned to walk. Ricky, I had to learn to walk. Something that we take for granted today.
Oh, yeah, man.
I had to learn to do it, and it was crazy. I had to go to therapy 3 times a week. It was painful. From bedridden, even at home when the hospital released me, I was in bed for about maybe 5 to 6 weeks.
Wow.
I mean, if
bad.
I can go in as saying everything was in bed, bathroom, everything was in bed. That's how bad it was. Eventually on crutches, or wheelchair, then crutches. Again, going against the odds. You're never going to walk again. And he may never walk again. We're going to do the best. They told my mother, we're going to do the best we can to save his leg. There was already gangrene on my right leg. On my right leg, the bone snapped and came out of my leg. I shattered my ankle. They had to take part of the hip, like a piece of bone from the hip, to put in as an ankle. So it was pretty bad. It was pretty bad. So they said, look, we're going to try to save his leg, but he may never walk again.
Wow.
I was walking about 11 months later, So, again, it was moments at that time still that, why me? Always feeling like you're getting the bad end, you're getting the bad card shuffled to you. Today, I'm very fortunate, obviously 55, but it goes on,
And you're 55. You look good,
55.
man.
Thank you.
Wow.
Thank you. I feel 35.
Yeah, I'm trying to grow more gray hair like you, bro.
I'm trying to get rid of it.
No. They say that's sexy. You know that?
For the young ones. Hey, any young ones, Michelada time. No. My wife will see that and I'm trouble. Then came a moment where that's really, Ricky, what led me to leave that street
life,
gang
that gang life,
that everything.
that mentality.
Because at that point, I knew I couldn't run. And that's the truth. I knew I couldn't run, and I was going to get caught up. They were going to catch me at one point because, again, even though I was living in San Diego, my plan was still to go back to San Francisco. My parents were now well off in San Diego. I'm going back to San Francisco. I was just there having a good time in Tijuana and this and that, but my mentality was go back to San Francisco. I have the accident. I go through rehabilitation, learning how to walk. And now I'm like, if I go back to San Francisco, I'm hanging out. The fights were every week. Homeboy can't run no more. Yeah. He's going to get caught up here. So, at that point, it was like, yes, tú.
Robert, that you mentioned this, which I love. And this is something that a lot of these fans don't know. Because when you walk around, you walk with a nice suit. You always, every time I see you, you're well dressed. You know what I mean? And people don't know, gangster, him? Me sitting down with you, I mean, I grew up gangbanging as well, but I don't, but you cannot tell that on you, you know what I mean? And now that you're telling us the story, the fans are saying, wow, I didn't know that about him. So this is what I love, And
I'll tell you, and it's 100%, it's not something you could listen to any podcast. I've never touched that because, again, it's not something I'm embarrassed, but it's not something I promote because people, it's like, it has nothing to do with. Today, I said it's going to come out because, and you opened it up with, we want to know who Robert Diaz was. Well, this is who Robert Diaz was. And there is a message, too.
Of course.
It doesn't matter where you start, it's where you end.
Correct.
Boxing taught me that. It doesn't matter the first couple rounds. It's the last couple rounds. So I get away from it.
Did you ever end up in prison or in and out of jail?
Juvenile hall. Prison, no.
Good.
Because it came to the age where that's when the accident, that's when I said, you know what? I went back to Mexico. I lived there. I stayed there for like 2 or 3 years. That's what opened my eyes up to say, nah, there's a different path. There's a different life. Again, remembering where you come from, I wanted to go back to help the young peewees coming up and saying, hey, that's not the right life. You don't want to do that. I got into probations. When I got back to San Diego, I did some work in retail, and eventually I went back to school when I had my 2 kids. And I said, you know what? And here's, go back to school. Let me rewind.
Yeah.
I didn't finish junior high. That's how much of a fucking gangbanger I was. Yeah. I didn't finish junior high. So I did my GED after failing 7th grade. I was going to go into 7th grade the 3rd time.
Okay.
The principal says, dude, ya con bigote, I can't have you here. So test.
Para afuera.
I test, and I passed to 9th grade equivalency. So they put me into 9th, where I'm supposed to be. So it's almost like, okay, cool. Second chance. Don't mess it up. I'm moving around. I went back to Mexico. I come back, this and that. I never finished 9th. I go to another school in San Francisco. I'm back in San Francisco for a period, and I tell the school I'm in 10th. By the time they got my transcripts, hey, you never finished 9th, bro. And I'm like, so they said, all right, don't mess up. I stopped going like a month later. Yeah. So long story short, I did the GED.
You passed.
Passed, and okay, I'm good with a GED, right? When I had my kids, I'm like, I don't want them to know I had a GED. I don't want them to know I never walked. I didn't have a ceremony. I didn't, walk with the gown and all that. I need to be an example. And I think that happens to all young fathers. So I went back to adult school, to university, and wanted to get a degree. To be able to say, hey, you got to go to school. If I did it as an adult, correct, you got to do it too. So I did. I got my associates. I got a bachelor's, behavioral science, in criminal justice. By this time, I want to go help these young little gangbangers and try to convince them and everything. So I'm looking, where do I go work? What do I do? Somebody had mentioned go into corrections. And then I was testing.
And this was in San Diego already?
This is in San Diego.
Okay.
I was testing and then realized I don't want to be in prison. because at the end of the day, you're locked up
Yeah.
with the inmate as well. So I went into probations. And with probations, there's different departments where you can move into and out to. So I went into probations. I worked for the county of San Diego. I worked for an adult program. It was Camp West Fork.
Okay.
It was an adult camp, beautiful setting out in Ramona. But it was 7 days on, 7 days off. My shift was 12 hours a day.
Oh, wow.
So I worked for 7 days.
And kind of like a fireman.
Oh, it was horrible at first.
Yeah.
Because I wasn't used to it. I had to leave my kids, my family,
Yeah.
my wife. But after a couple months of getting used to it, it was probably the best job I've ever had in the sense of time working and time off. You had more time off than you had work. No other job has that. And they closed the camp, of course.
Yeah.
A couple months,
Right?
no funding from the county, this and that. And I'm like, man, I was only there for
I
like
was
10
happy.
months. Yeah. And then I get sent where I thought was where I wanted to go, because this was an adult camp.
Yeah.
Everybody respectful. You can give them add to their sentence as an officer.
Really?
So everybody was chill.
Calmado.
And you didn't have major crimes. You had burglary, you had addictions, you had theft, you had spousal abuse. You didn't have major. So it was a work camp. Now I get sent closer to home, Monday through Friday, 8-hour shift, juvenile hall. And I'm thinking, oh my God, this is going to be a piece of cake. This is going to be a piece of cake. If I dealt with the adults, but you can't add more time to these kids.
Oh, you cannot.
Only the judge can. Number two, they're beginning their career, These other guys are trying to end it or want to fix it. So it was, I'll give you an example. 10 months with the adults, not once could I use my pepper spray. Not once. We couldn't carry a gun. It was only pepper spray. And there was days I'd wake up, in a bad mood or being challenged. And I'm like, come on, somebody say something to me. Look at me wrong so I could spray your ass. And with the juveniles, I walk in, and the first day I'm using my can. The first day. And from there on, it was almost every day.
Because you got fuck-ups that really mess up.
Every day they're challenging you, Ricky. They're like, hey, come on, bring it. And to be honest, there were some guys that are bigger than you.
Oh, and your street mentality, too, is like, oh, these motherfuckers.
They can't be challenging.
Yeah.
And you're trying to be like, let me help you.
Yeah.
But first you got to start by respecting. And a lot of them wouldn't. But every day you're breaking up fights. Here, where the adults fight behind your back because they don't want to get more time.
Yeah.
The juveniles are fighting in front of you because they want you to break it up. They really don't want to fight, So it was two different systems. I wasn't used to it. They even told me, you should have started here and ended here. But when you start here, you're already spoiled.
Yeah.
And end here, it's going to be tough.
Right.
And it was. I did there about a year. In San Diego, at Juvenile Hall. And then in between is how I break into boxing. I was already there when I had already met one of my idols. I met him at a mall in San Diego. It was during the Christmas season.
Who was your idol?
Marco Antonio Barrera.
No way.
Yeah.
I know you work with him as well, right?
I was very fortunate to have met him in a mall, and this is where boxing just takes off for me. Just imagine in anything, football, baseball, you look up to a certain player, and that he says, "Hey, come join me on the tour. Come join me in my camp." I meet him at a mall. At the time, we didn't have cell phones, much less with a camera.
Fucking camera.
How do I get a picture? How do I get an autograph?
But that didn't even cross your mind, I bet, right? Like, oh, I want to take a picture with him right now.
Not the picture because we didn't have access to it then. Yeah. But I did want an autograph.
Yes.
And I was always very particular in autographs. If it was a boxer, it had to be something autograph of boxing. You see the fans that, hey, can you sign my T-shirt or can you sign this napkin or a $1 bill?
That's stupid.
I didn't like it. I like if you're a baseball player, here's a bat, here's a glove, here's a ball. And if it's football, something football.
Correct.
I run around the mall looking for boxing related, something boxing.
Yeah.
Whether a mouthpiece,
whatever,
a glove, anything boxing. No hay. Because it was a fashion mall. In fact, I think it was Mission Valley or Fashion Valley. Mm-hmm. And it was clothing and stuff like that, but it wasn't anything boxing related. So I'm like a stalker waiting for him to walk by. He's walking by again, and I walk up to him and I said, "Hey, Marco," he had just lost to Junior Jones.
What?
I said,
I remember that.
it was 97.
Yeah.
I said, keep your head up. You're one of the best. And I had been seeing him even before he won the world title. I followed that camada of boxing of Bolillo Gonzalez, Miguel Angel Gonzalez, Goyito Vargas, and Marco Barrera. They were all coming up at the same time in Mexico City. And I said, if I give you my address, you think you could send me something signed? I mean, again, I'm a big fan. Keep your head up, blah, blah. He goes, yeah, give it to me. The card was already filled out. It was a piece of paper here. Couple weeks go by, and I get a package in the mail.
Wow.
And it was a studio photo, a T-shirt, and like a note, stay in touch.
You still have that at home, right?
I still have that at home. I still have the old T-shirt, almost faded out, and I still have the studio photo plaqued up and framed. And then, because that's one of the first ones. Now, my very first autograph was Tommy Hearns. Beautiful picture, 82. He sends me an autograph, because back then there was no email, but you would write a letter and boom, every once in a while you get something back. And Tommy Hearns was my very first one. So Barrera's going to fight at Fantasy Springs now. A couple years go by, and I read in La Opinión, he's having a fight at Fantasy Springs. This is when it was outdoors. They didn't have the arena. So I take the drive from Chula Vista to Fantasy Springs. Now check this one out. I'm outside waiting where the table of the fighters check in. He shows up with his team, and he turns around. About 2 years have passed. This is December of 98.
When he fought, you saying, right?
When he fought at Fantasy.
Yeah.
And I met him like in December of 97 or something like that, when he had just lost to Jones. So it was about 2 years now that have gone by. And he walks by, checking in the desk. And
I remember
like, hey,
it was all dirt. I remember.
Yeah. The Julio Diaz and Antonio, I think, fought out there in the outdoors. It's like, I think where the parking lot is.
Yeah, it was up. Yeah, it was. I still remember because Gabriel fought in the parking lot. I mean, it was a big arena. We fought at Suma Nelson outside. Oh, yeah, that was 1997 as well. It was a December. We fought. Gabriel fought at Suma Nelson, the rematch
at Fantasy.
At Fantasy Springs. Yeah, because we. When I say we, it's because it's Gabriel, Joe, and the team. I was a kid, and I was learning how to be a cornerman at that time. Then I was working Gabriel's corner. So I remember we fought in Fantasy Spring. It was cold, and Gabriel had retired because with the Jimmy Garcia situation. He fought. He came back. He fought Arturo Gatti, and he lost. And then he gets a rematch with Asuma Nelson again in Fantasy Springs. It was promoted by Don King and King and Dan. And I remember still the whole parking lot was. People say, well, because Shane Mosley fought there as well. We fought Shane Mosley. We fought him with Joe was training Wilfredo Rivera.
Okay, the Puerto Rican. Yeah.
We were beating Shane Mosley. Not lying to you. This I go, what the fuck? We were beating him. Boom, 12 round. Shane Mosley catch him. And Wilfredo Rivera, he's like this. I go, motherfucker, you gonna get up? Get up, Joe's telling, get up. And he was just fuck. He was messed up. But when you say that, it's the outside.
Yeah.
And for you to be waiting for Barrera.
So I was waiting, seeing if he, and here's the crazy thing. He turns around, looks at me.
He remembers.
And he doesn't say Roberto. I mean, all the fans they meet and everything. He goes, San Diego, huh? And I said, yeah. He goes, come in the back with me. Sick. And he takes me in the dressing room, which were little tents, introduces me to the team, his father, his brother, his cousin, his right-hand man at the time, Oscar Maldonado from the Maldonados here in L.A. Get to meet him. It was like an exhibition. In fact, I believe that night, and here's one that's, again, crazy story that only in boxing, and it tells you how we were back then in as far as licensing. I believe that's the night that there was going to be a fight between Chino Garcia and a Montiel for the vacant WBO flyweight title. Montiel wakes up with a paralyzed, his face. He had Bell's palsy or something, and can't fight. Chino Garcia it was going to be Carita Lopez from Puerto Rico against Montiel.
Okay.
Chino Garcia is there as a fan to watch the fight because eventually, I may fight one of these guys. They call him up and say, hey, are you willing to fight? He's like, bro, I didn't even bring tongues. I don't have mouth. We'll let you borrow everything. They get him on the scale, gets in the ring, and wins the world title.
No way.
Chino Garcia wins the world title, but he didn't weigh in, or must have weighed in right before. They fixed it the day of the fight. He walks into the ring, walks out with a belt. That's crazy.
Only Dean.
That's crazy.
You remember
only
Dean Leha?
Only Dean would have said, "Hey, this is approvable." That's right. And it shows that probably, I don't know if he was already licensed, medical, or everything, but he showed up as a fan to watch the fight because eventually, hey, I might fight one of these guys. Went on to win the world title. I think defended it like 4 or 5 times.
Wow,
that happened
what a
at
great
Fantasy.
Story, bro.
That happened at Fantasy.
See, you guys didn't know that. Oh, wow. I didn't even know that.
That's a legit story.
Great story. So what happened to
I
Barrera?
connect with Marco there. The very next fight is February 19, 2000. It was 99, sorry. December of 99 when I was there. So the next fight is February 19, 2000, the first Barrera Morales fight.
Because he was hot back then.
That's when Morales was actually the favorite. They didn't even think there was going to be that big. Mandalay was cut in half, and tickets went really well.
Yeah.
And they started opening up a little bit more, but they didn't even fill up the full arena. The expectation for that fight was Morales is going to knock out Barrera in 5 or 6 rounds. And all the support of fan base. I mean, Eric had all Tijuana. Marco had LA.
Yeah.
Marco was really born here in the LA community, boxing wise, fighting, in LA under Jerry Buss and at the Forum.
Because he's originally from La Ciudad, right?
He's from La Ciudad de Mexico, but came very early here. And really, Marco's popularity was LA. But Tijuana outnumbered LA. There was probably like a 70-30 split. By the end of the night, after the decision, and after an amazing fight, I think they got round of the year, round 5, fight of the year, and as we called it at the time, Robo del Año too, right? By the end of the fight, all the fans were going to Marco for autographs and pictures. They said, we came from Tijuana to support Morales, but tonight you won. Now, here's a crazy one that the fans don't know. About a week after the fight, we were all partying in Tijuana. At first, Marco was like, I don't know if I want to go. Come on, bro. Tijuana's a big fight town. They love boxing. They respect boxing. You saw the response from all the fans at the fight. Let's go to Tijuana. Now, Oscar lived in Mexicali, so we went. We had dinner at my house in Chula Vista. We crossed the border and hit a couple clubs. And the love and support Marco got during that
tremendous
weekend in TJ was incredible. And a lot of fans would tell us, we haven't even seen Eric.
Wow.
Eric's not even been in Tijuana since the fight. So that rivalry was so good, Ricky, because
he stole his fans, I'll bet.
Hate.
Yeah.
They really hated each other, you know?
Was it in the rematch where Eric Morales swung or Barrera swung at? That was the rematch.
So Marco was very tranquilo, but when he lit up, you couldn't hold him back. He hit Kennedy McKinney at the press conference prior to the Eric Morales fights. And then it was the second fight before it got canceled because there was a postponement. Marco got injured in Big Bear sparring with Robbie Pete in his rib. But we had done a photo shoot here in L.A. with HBO.
But can I stop you? I have to stop you there because we need to go back. How did Robert Diaz get involved now with with Barrera? Because I know you tell me the story, but I go, okay, where did you? Because you started a friendship with him already in San Diego. Then he sees you in the fight, and he says, "Come here." How did you start getting involved and being? What was your role in the camp?
Sure. So after the Fantasy Springs fight, I talked to Oscar Maldonado. He says, "What is it that you want or need?" I said, "Look, I want to go to the fight with Morales. I love both of them because coming up, I mean, I like both fighters.
Yeah.
But eventually, I said, if they do fight each other, because you kept hearing back and forth, it was going to happen. I said, I'm going to go with Marco. So I told Oscar, I said, I want to go to the fight. I'll buy my tickets. I'll take care of everything.
And when you're talking about Oscar, you're talking about?
Maldonado. He was Marco's right-hand man, the son of Ricardo Maldonado. So I said, I want to go to the fight. I'll pay for my tickets. I'll pay for all my expenses, but I want to sit in the section because I didn't know. I was a fan. I didn't know the inside at the time.
Yeah.
I want to be in the section where Barrera's section is, her family, her team, and everything. And Oscar said, all right, give me your number. and I'll contact you. I remember driving home that day. I gave him a number. I remember driving home saying, shit, I should have got his number. I'm not
So
going
you
to get
could
a
call
call.
him.
I'm not going to get a call. They're going to get too busy. So now I'm at home sleeping, and there's a phone call, and I hear my wife saying, ¿de parte de quién? Oscar Maldonado. But I'm in my bed, like
Wow.
laying out. And I'm like, hey, that's for me. That's for me. And I answer, and he goes, hey, I just wanted to give you the number. We're here in Big Bear. We just set up camp. Here's the cabin number, the address. If you could make it up,
Wow.
welcome. By the way, Marco wants to say hello. And it becomes, this fan fighter friendship. I go to Big Bear a couple times while he's preparing for the Barrera, for the Morales fight. I remember talking to him one day. My mom's from La Ciudad de Mexico. And I remember talking to him and like, hey, ¿no estás fastidiado? Haven't you got, bored of the food here? It was Sizzler every day Sizzler. And he said, yeah, man, I miss home cooking. So I go home one day and I tell my mama, I'm going up this weekend. What can you make me? But remember, he's cutting weight, dieting. So my mom makes me a big old pot of caldo de pollo con verduras.
Oh.
So I show up to Big Bear with this big old pot. There's
Hey,
pictures, man. We're all with tortillas, aguacate, the whole team. Everybody's eating. Oscar calls me the next day. He says, bro, don't ever do that again. Again, not knowing the boxing world, knowing the fight fan world.
Of course.
And I said, why? What happened? What did I do? I thought I was doing a good thing. Yeah, fucking Marco gained like 8 pounds. And I'm like, oh, my God. If he loses, it's my fault. But it was still weeks away. So I think I now want to say that's why he came in and looked so strong and powerful in that fight, because of the caldo de pollo. But we developed a great friendship. And, right after the Morales fight, he's like, come out to my next fight. And eventually he's like, why don't you carry the flag? What do you mean?
Wow.
Yeah, bring in the flag into the ring. And, dude, that was like a dream come true for any fan, Number one, just to be in communication and talks and hanging out at the Big Bear in the camp and just going to lunch or dinner. He invites me to his house in Mexico City after a weigh-in. Right after the Morales fight, he fought Popo Freitas, his brother, older brother,
really?
Luis Claudio Freitas. So we're there having lunch, met his mom. The dad I had met through the camp. And, well, the mom I had met after the Morales fight, but more in an intimate setting, a family setting, and really got to know them. Through the fights, carry the flag. Eventually, what happens? He starts breaking up. Oh, okay. Here's another one of facing the odds. He's going to fight our beloved idol, Johnny Tapia.
Johnny Tapia. Oh.
That's the fight I miss. I don't make it. I don't make it to the fight, and I'm going through a fight myself. I get diagnosed with third stage cancer.
No way, really?
Yeah, I'm about 33.
Wow.
And just, it wasn't out of the blue, but I started getting sick. No, I didn't know until I got diagnosed, but I had symptoms. But as a young, I was in my 30s, I'm invincible. There were symptoms, but I would blame something else. Like, I'll say it. I was throwing up a lot of blood.
Yeah.
And I was like, man, I better cut down on the drinking and the hot sauce and the salsas and this and that, because it must be an ulcer.
Wow, Robert.
And eventually got diagnosed, went through the chemos, lost all my hair. I always weighed about, at the time, 200 pounds. Went down about 120, 125 pounds. I mean, I was like esqueleto. Yeah. I left San Diego. I was... And this happened. Now I when I hear of a patient with cancer, I want to talk to them, tell them that they're not alone and everything, because I was embarrassed. I didn't want to be seen by people that knew me, because the first thing they tell you is like, wow, cabrón, you look sick. And that was going to mess with me more. So I leave and I move to Sacramento. And there I said, nobody knows me. I'm like, and it's a roller coaster. One day you're mad, one day you're sad, one day you're
bipolar, kind of.
Exactly. You turn bipolar. I was very fortunate. Marco in the fight with Tapia, actually, if you go through and watch the fight at the end and his HBO interview after the fight, says, I just had a hard fight. But Roberto, these gloves are for you.
Oh, I'm gonna see
You
that.
have a
I'm
harder fight
now
coming.
now you guys could go look at because I'm gonna look at that now. Wow, that's amazing,
I
bro.
have the gloves still framed with the trunks and everything. An amazing memory. It reminds me too that the relationship with Marco, how that motivated me, how it felt. Wow, he took the time and even though it's minor now, knowing what fighters do and athletes do, people just think, hey, they only do what they see in the ring, but there's that human side of them
Yeah.
too because they're out there helping and in many cases motivating. So I get through that battle. Marco calls me and says, "How you doing? How you feeling?" This is now months after I'm remission. The doctor says, hey, you got to be checking up and everything, but you're good. And he says, I'm breaking away from the Maldonados and Forum Boxing. Whoa, that was a surprise.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, how you doing with the? I said, I'm good. I'm good. He goes, okay, well, I just want to know if you want to come with me. Again, at that point, I was carrying the flag. He would come into town to LA. Hey, I'll pick you up at the airport, drive you, take you. If there was interviews or anything, I'll translate for you. And he says, I'm going to go with Oscar de la Hoya, Golden Boy Promotions. They were not starting, but, getting off their feet. They were starting to get bigger fighters, name fighters. And Marco was the very first big name
that they had.
And I want to know if you want to come with me or you're going to stay with the Maldonados. And I said, Marco, I met the Maldonados because of you, but I'm with you. He says, well, let's go. At that point, it was the first fight under a contract was Manny Pacquiao. And he says, what do you think of this guy? And okay, now we go fast forward 20 plus years and you see a phenomenal fighter. But at the time, I watched the fight with Agapito Sanchez. Marco had beaten Agapito, and Agapito gave Manny a hard time with the jab. Mm-hmm. Now Marco, like Cotto, like Oscar, is a naturally left-handed, fights orthodox.
Converted southpaw.
So his jab is his best punch, and his left hook, his left hand. So I'm like, Marco, he's fast, but I don't see anything special. Well,
so Marcos was the same. Is the same as Oscar.
Oscar, Miguel Cotto, and Marco. Yeah, all converted southpaws.
Andre Ward is a converted.
Oh, I didn't know.
Andre Ward, my fighter Hamza. He's a converted southpaw. That's why he's amazing with his jab. But that left hand, there's.
And it, at the time, Marco's trainer Rudy Perez, may rest in peace, said nobody wants to fight southpaws, so I got to turn you into orthodox. But now, if you think about it, you throw the jab more than any other punch.
You have to.
So it might as well be the punch that's really getting the other guy's attention, not just to set up the right. So I think more should look into it more in the training factor. But I thought it was going to be our debut and despedida because it was his first fight under Golden Boy. Manny stops Marco. And all I'm thinking is like, damn, that's it. It's your start and your finish. It's for me. Basically, I'm like, Marco could go on, but I'm like, fuck, what a bad start. And there was a lot in Marco's mind in that fight, and I'm not taking anything away. Manny Pacquiao's who he is. I mean, one of the greatest fighters ever to step in the ring. But during the time, there was the lawsuit between Forum, Maldonados. It was discovered that Marco had brain surgery, head surgery, because it wasn't brain. They kept saying brain surgery, his life's in danger. It was head surgery. He had a malformation in a vein, and it was taken care of. And his doctor, Marco thought he had to retire.
Yeah, a lot of us did. At that time, I go, fuck, he had brain surgery because I thought it was brain surgery.
Brain, yeah. And it was a little vessel. And his doctor said, what, you don't want to fight no more? You don't like it? He goes, no, I cannot. Yeah, you can continue. It's been taken care of, and you're good. Wow. And look, Marco had a better second half in the career. So, but a lot of was going on. We didn't know where we was going to fight. We were in Big Bear, Ricky, setting up camp when the sheriff comes knocking.
To serve him.
And I opened the door and I said, he goes, you got to evacuate. And I'm thinking, they probably think it's a bunch of Mexicans in Oscar's house. I said, no. De La Hoya let us borrow the house. No, you don't understand. You got to evacuate. Mandatory evacuation from the city, the town. The fires were up there.
Yeah.
So it's like we set up camp in a hotel near the airport. And then we were watching the news, and the fires are hitting Tijuana, San Diego, or they're coming down to LA. It's like, we're going to have to break camp here too.
Yeah.
So we head to San Antonio, where the fight's going to be. And Marco, he was okay with very cold weather, but it was tough on that humidity and the hot weather. And it was
Yeah.
just a change. And with everything going on, you could see, we thought we were getting through the obstacles,
It was getting worse.
but it was getting worse. As if
Who was he getting ready for?
Manny,
Manny.
it was the first fight with Manny. And then obviously when we saw the fight, it was like, that's not Marco. That wasn't Marco. And then again, you had this phenom that was being born. Nobody really knew who he was yet. He was born a couple fights before, but really against Barrera is where he breaks
blew
out,
up.
right? Then came the Marquez fight, the first one, and stuff
And then
like that.
Morales
But
as well, right?
with Morales. In fact, we're in camp. Now I'm full on with Marco. I'm working with Marco. I'm going down and negotiating the fights with Golden Boy and
Oh,
stuff
that's
like
pretty
that.
cool now, see?
Yeah.
So now that's your role
it
now.
opened up my role there.
Did you know the boxing lingo, how to negotiate
I
already?
didn't. In fact, when Marco asked me, I was like, I've never done this before. But I had worked retail. I had worked business.
So
I had
kinda-
a business savvy. I knew boxing as far as I thought. I knew styles and the matching. And I said, okay. I didn't sleep for 2 or 3 days, but eventually I said, okay, let's do it. And it was smooth. It was good. He had a great second half, like I said, of his career. Fought Paulie. A lot of things were said that, oh, he couldn't beat Manny because he's a southpaw. So the very next fight, he fights Paulie Ayala to prove I can beat a southpaw. It's not a southpaw thing.
That was a good fight.
And he beats him at Carson. And now it's full on. I was doing probations in San Diego at the same time.
Oh, were you really?
Yeah,
That's
I was
fucking-
doing probations during that time, and it permitted me because of the 7 days on, 7
Yeah.
days off. But eventually, it was like, I'm loving this. I'm loving this, and
I'm gonna
it's
make
a
a career out of it.
passion. I love boxing, and what an opportunity again from this kid or this adult meeting one of your idols at the mall, and now to be fortunately working with him and working on his fights, and it became really good. I mean, today I'm a godfather to his oldest, and
You guys still stay in touch?
I see Marquito more often because he's in LA. That's his oldest
Yes,
son. I see Marco now at the events because
'Cause
he
he's
does
commentating.
commentating a lot and everything. In fact, when I saw the first podcast of him and Morales together, I was like, oh my God, I can't believe, they're back again. But after a couple episodes, I could see
See that they're
the
still there, huh?
tension is still there. They're fighters, and that mentality is always going to be, hey, I'm going to throw the first punch. So, and they're so heated. Regardless if they're cordial now,
Yeah.
I think it's more of like, don't push that button
Yeah,
because
'cause
you're
he's
going to
gonna-
get the reaction. And you could see it. And Marco, like I said, él se prende rápido.
So your role there now, Robert, is your career in Golden Boy, how it began as a matchmaker. Because, and also when you tell us that, Robert, we would love to know, the fans, what were the biggest fights that you matched?
So Marco is going to pretty much on the retirement after the Marquez fight. I don't want him to continue anymore. I think like the burnout, the routine. That's what fans need to understand. Is sometimes it's the routine that kills. You know it. The getting up every morning at 5 and running. And
Especially when you're doing it since young.
it's so young. Marco turned pro at 15.
Wow.
So at this point, it's like there has to be the burnout. There has to be, I'm tired of this. The body gets tired of it. Day in, day out, they see the fight and they see maybe a first round knockout and say, how easy was that fight?
Yeah.
But they don't see 100 rounds in camp of sparring with 3 or 4 different fresh young kids. So staying away from the family, all those sacrifices, I learned to respect and really admire by being in camp. There was times in camp with Marco that, hey, bro, my sister-in-law is getting married. Can I go down to the wedding? Nope.
No.
We're all in camp. After the fight, we can all do whatever we want. But during camp and
Were you the one to say that, or?
no, I was the one being told because
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
told Marco
correct.
one time, hey, my sister-in-law is getting married
Yeah.
in San Diego. Can I go?
No.
We were in camp in Mexico City or Guadalajara, and he said, after the fight, you can go. No, but the wedding's a week before the fight.
Yeah.
We're all here together. We all
That's it.
finished the work together, and we all okay. But you learn that discipline, the sacrifices. How many times is a fighter not there for a birthday party, for
Birth.
mothers, yeah, for a birth.
I was just talking that with Mikey Garcia. He missed his childbirth. You know, it's a lot of sacrifice.
You can't get that back. You can't get a lot
Their
of
time.
them don't have a childhood because they're in tournaments during this childhood.
Correct.
So they have to mature a lot faster than a lot of the fans watching that think, hey, well, why is he acting like a little kid? Well,
Correct.
because now he can be,
It could be sorry.
So when he's going about basically on his retirement, I'm now working. Obviously, working with Marco opened up doors for me with other fighters. I'd gotten a call from Manuel Mantecas Medina to help him,
Oh.
5-time featherweight world
Yeah.
champion. Can you help me? And we're in South Africa for a world title eliminator. When I get a call from my wife, hey, Eric Gomez is looking for you, needs to talk to you. And I said, okay, patch him in. Connects me, and he's like, I want to offer you a job here at Golden Boy. And I'm like, doing what? Matchmake. We're growing really fast. I'm the matchmaker, and you'll be my assistant. You'll help me make the fights and sign the talent. And I'm like, dude, that's a dream come true, to work for the. Oh yeah, and at the time, Golden Boy wasn't
Big.
the biggest yet, but it was getting there. It was
getting
getting
there.
a lot of attention. I think Mosley had already gotten with Golden Boy, but Hopkins had gotten with Golden Boy, so the company was growing really fast. Obviously, Marquez was now at Golden Boy. No, so it was one of the top promotionals because that's when Marquez had beaten Marco. So it was a time when Golden Boy was
just
the
blowing up.
number one
Yeah.
promotional company in the world.
They were signing Olympians.
Yeah.
They were getting guys from in the teams.
Again, I didn't sleep for 2 or 3 days because it was like a lot of pressure. You have to move to LA. At the time, now I'm still living in Sacramento. I had gone through the remission, everything, and recovered, but I had now learned to enjoy peace and quiet from Sacramento. But it was a dream. I mean, think of it. I was going to go back to probations or Marco was going to retire. What am I going to do? Boom, this opened up. I took it. Now, what's a matchmaker? What is the role? I hadn't really done it. I had matched for Marco when Golden Boy would present opponents, and I was like, not this one, not that one. Yes, this one, based on styles. But now it's really a true test of day after day after day of now putting fighters' lives and career on your line. And it's a big responsibility. I still say it to this day, Ricky, some of the best matchmakers in the world are the fans because they know this guy should fight that guy. But that's the easy part. The hard part is getting through the obstacles of getting through the trainer, manager, wife, husband, brothers, that this is the right fight at the right time. Because a lot of times you have those obstacles that say, not yet. Let it milk, let it brew, let it marinate, let it,
keep on,
he's not ready, he's not. So it's like, man. So the easy part is, A should fight B, and that's a great fight for the fans. Now, I always said this from day one when I started. My mentality was, I'm not here to build a record. I don't care to build a record. I want to build champions. I want to build character. And what I meant by that is I didn't care to have a guy 20-0 with 20 knockouts, all in the first round, to fail on his attempt at a world title. It looks beautiful on paper, but is he really ready for it? I didn't care if we got there 18-2, but I knew when he got there, he was going to win that world title.
He was going to be ready.
He was going to be ready. And it was tough. I remember my first 2 shows, Ricky, I wanted to quit.